Someone recently asked online about the plausibility of utilizing 3D Coat as a viable sketching tool. The answer to that is absolutely you can. Even though 3D Coat is designed to work on 3D models, it still has some very powerful 2D capabilities, and its Paint workspace is designed to be very Photoshop centric. So anyone who's new to 3D Coat will feel very comfortable once you get started here in this environment. And then also, we can utilize 3D Coat's ability to paint with displacement or normal matte relief, as well as color, glossiness, and metalness all simultaneously. In this case, when we're painting with image maps, such as, again, your normal map and your displacement map, we're working somewhat in a 2.5D mode. That's a very powerful way of working, as we'll see. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to start from the splash screen, and I'm going to choose a UV map mesh. I'll click on that, and 3D Coat instantly brings me to the install folder and the samples directory. From there, I'm going to choose plane. Then I have some options how to set the plane up. And what 3D Coat is going to do is it's going to use this mesh as a basis for our canvas. It's going to apply a UV map onto that mesh. And if you're familiar with Photoshop, you know that in the liquify tool, you can use it to kind of distort your images, and you also have some mesh tools as well that you can utilize. And so we can use this mesh in almost the same identical way that you would use liquify or some of those mesh tools in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of subdivision here. And the reason for this is we don't want it to be too coarse. We may want to use a little bit of mesh editing capability in the tweak room. So I'm going to add 4K and obviously keep the UV, no smoothing. And here is where you're going to add your different texture sizes. You can mix it up if you need. Let's say if you want 4K width and maybe a 2K height, you could do that. Or in this case, I'm just going to go with a 2K patch here. And if you wanted, you could enter a custom texture size if you need. So I'm going to redo that. And then just hit OK. It's going to send us to the UV workspace, but we don't need to make any edits here, so I'm just going to go to the Paint workspace. And if we want, we can start off in flat shade. That way we don't have any glossiness nor shadows obstructing our view of what we're painting, but you could go back to smooth shade if you want. So yeah, go back to view, and also I want to turn on wireframe to kind of inspect the mesh that we have here. And if we want a lot of detail when painting in a depth channel, then what we can do is subpatch. In other words, 3D Coat has an underlying version of this mesh, and it's going to subdivide it. It's going to use just that underlying mesh to drive any displacement or any normal map relief that we have. Okay, so what I may do is adjust subpatching, and if we had multiple UVs, we would choose which one we want to work with here. And this is how many subdivisions it's going to supply. So let's just go with 4, hit OK. And I'm going to hit the hotkey for wireframe and just turn it off temporarily. So now I want to get out of a perspective view and go into orthographic, which removes all that perspective distortion. And let's go to a front view. And so now we have our canvas, and this allows us to work in symmetry. So I can hit the S key and bring up my symmetry panel. You can also access symmetry here, and you can pull this out just like you can in Photoshop if you need. So I'll hit my S key, and I may want to work in X axis. Also may want to turn on a vertical grid. Let's choose X, Y, and plane. You can also bring in a reference image to use just as a visual guide if you want here in the color palette. What you do is go to the upper right hand corner, and rather than a color picker, we can choose image, and we can pick colors from the image. But in this case, we're going to use it as a reference image. You have some widgets here to zoom in and out, to pan, and also to zoom all the way out. Okay. What I did here is I've got a model that sometimes you may want to sketch in 3D. You want to just kind of work on your character development and explore or experiment a little bit. And if at any juncture you want to stop and develop it in 2D more so with a sketch rather than working in 3D, you can do that by simply going to maybe a front view and rendering that out in the render room, saving that to an image, and then maybe a side view. You could do the same thing, render that out, and then just bring them in here again, use them as reference, or in this case I'm going to create an overlay. So what I may want to do first with this particular layer is give it maybe not completely white, but a very light gray. And with the paintbrush chosen, actually I could just use the fill tool and see a preview of what it's going to look like if I change my color. You can see what that's, again, I can see what it's going to look like on my plane. I'll change that back. Okay. Yeah. So all I have to do is just click on the mesh, and that's it. It's going to fill it with this white. So let's create a new layer by clicking on the new layer icon, and this one I'll double click and name it overlay. And so I'm just going to use a reference image, kind of as a visual guide, right on my canvas. So now what I want to do is go to the Smart Material panel, and we're not restricted to working with these 3D shader or material models. We actually can work with flat 2D images. So let's go to the upper right hand corner, this little toggle, and you can add a new folder if you want for just flat 2D images. In this case I've already got one created for that purpose, and you can see we've already created it here. If you want to bring an image in, just click on new and you'll see this material editor. Don't worry about all these different map types and the different controls at this stage. We just want to click on the color map, find our image, and once that is brought in, we want to name it if you want to save it, and then choose from camera, and that will give us a flat 2D image. So I'm going to click cancel because I've already created one, and when you click on it you'll see it in your viewport. If your aspect ratio is off like this one is, I can just click reset in the preview options panel here, and I can use these widgets. You also happen to have that little yellow dot that you can right click on and it gives you a 2D gizmo. We're not going to use that at the moment. These little widgets will work just fine. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And what I want to do is line that up because I'm going to use symmetry with this particular model. Okay, now I just want to push it down in the y-axis, so I'm going to right click on the little gizmo and just push it down the axis and click the little X to remove the gizmo. So basically what we have is an overlay over the top of our patch. So to fill this, there are a couple different ways that we could do it. Again, we could just click here and that would fill it. The other way is with the paintbrush, we could paint it in, or we could use a rectangle and just drag select over it. So with that already applied now, let's go ahead and close this. I can click the close icon here or here, either way. So now that that's out of the way, I want to modify the color just a bit. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this layer and just save this one. Kind of so that way I can work in a non-destructive fashion. If I need to get back to this original, I can without any real fuss. So let's go with our copy, and now under textures, just like you would in Photoshop, you can make adjustments. Let's choose hue, saturation, and lightness. Check preview and just scrub my saturation slider. Okay. I can change the blending mode just like I would in Photoshop. And I want to just kind of knock out the background. So let's use our magic wand just like we would in Photoshop again. In the tool options panel, you have a color tolerance if you want to utilize that. By default, it's at 32 just like it is in Photoshop. In this case, I reduced the number. Let's try 10. And I can just click. And because there's a gradient background, I'm going to have to make multiple selections. So just like in Photoshop, to continue adding to your selection, you just hold down the Shift key. And I can see it's cutting in here, so I don't want that. I'm going to undo a few times. Or I could hit Control D, just like I would in Photoshop, to clear a selection. And I'll change that again to 5. And this is probably why I wanted to leave a little bit of color. So what I can do is just clear that, go back to this one, and duplicate it. I'm doing this because the blue color provides a bit more contrast from the background. If I want, I can step over into Photoshop and use its more advanced magic wand capabilities. So let's go ahead and try that. All I have to do is hit Control P. So this will allow me to demonstrate just how tightly integrated 3D Coat is and how easy it is to go back and forth between the two. You'll notice here that 3D Coat supplies a UV wireframe overlay. So I can drag that over the top. In this case, I don't have any UV islands. It's just one big UV patch or UV island, so I'll leave that at the bottom. I'll select the overlay copy layer and then commence to using Photoshop's quick selection tool. Before I do, I probably should go to Image, Adjustment, Curves, and increase the contrast just a bit. I think it'll be fun. Hold down the Shift key. Hold down the Alt key to deselect some of these areas. Turns out it would have been faster in 3D Coat, I think, but it's just the way it is sometimes. In this case, again, we're just using it as a visual guide, so we're not really trying to use this as a final image. So I think we're okay. Hold down the Alt key. And I think we're squared away. So now we can just hit the Delete key and delete those pixels. Hit Control D to deselect. And all I have to do is hit the Control S keyboard combination, or from the file menu just save. So back in 3D Coat.